So I'd like to apologise on behalf of me and you for my mistake. Lindsay, why don't you look into the camera and say the word?
No.
Look into the camera.
No.
And cleanse your soul of this control they have over you and say the word.
What's with the we?
Royal we.
Oh, right, okay.
When I go to jail, when I'm in court, I'll be using the word we. And when the magistrate goes, what do you mean we? I'll be Mr. Khan as well.
Yes.
I was led astray by Mr. Khan. That's nothing new, I've heard about that. But my criticism of that is, but you didn't put it online, though, did you?
Yeah.
You heard it, but you didn't put it online.
Yeah.
Because suddenly we're scared to talk about that because we think Keir Starmer may lock us up.
Yeah.
Once a year I get a tweet that goes over 1 million.
Yeah.
I did a tweet the other day that hit over 14 million.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 62 of The Mayor and I, with me, Lindsay Khan, and the Mayor, Nick Buckley, MBE, our weekly look at events in the world generally.
In this mental world that we happen to be in.
Yeah, and actually, sometimes it's too much stuff to put down.
It's too mental.
So we're going to have a little chat about things. Episode 62, say 62? 62, which is quite a lot of episodes. Welcome, Nick Buckley, MBE.
Thank you.
And by the way, if you like what you're watching, thumbs up, subscribe, comment would be much appreciated.
Nearly 27,500 subscribers now. We've gone up over 2,000 in this last week, considering the week before I think we had 3.
Yes. You stole my thunder. I was going to mention. I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
And a lot of it came around because of one particular episode we filmed. Sorry, one section that we filmed. Sorry. So one particular section you took from that episode, which is around a trip I had with a cabbie in London, has had nearly 200,000 viewings. And not coincidentally, I think it related, you did a tweet as well, which had something like...
Over 40. That's the biggest one. I've had a couple of tweets. Once a year I get a tweet that goes over 1 million.
Yeah.
I did a tweet the other day that hit over 14 million.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that later because it's quite interesting, because I think it's the first tweet you've ever done that my wife has agreed with you on.
It was obviously wrong then, wasn't it?
So I think you're seeing my wife on Sunday, so we can discuss it. But if I could go back to the cabbie video, and for our viewers, it was about a trip we had in London. I had in London with a cabbie, and he told me 3 things about Keir Starmer. We won't go into them again, what they were. But we had a lot of feedback, and quite a lot of angry feedback from listeners on that particular video. A lot of the complaints were about the microphone, Nick.
Should we address that now?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, because I think there's there's people demanding answers out there.
Well, and they deserve answers. So I'd like to apologise on behalf of me and you for my mistake.
Right, okay.
But my mistake, has now led to checks that we do before we film anything.
Yeah.
Which we've just spent 15 minutes doing, haven't we?
Yes, it's actually become quite sad. So there's now a formal checklist that you go through before each episode to try and improve the sound. And that's
because we're not techie. And
what's with the we?
Royal we.
Oh, right, okay.
When I go to jail, when I'm in court, I'll be using the word we. And when the magistrate goes, what do you mean we? I'll be Mr. Khan as well.
Yes.
I was led astray by Mr. Khan.
Track him down.
But hopefully, just like we've done now, we've just averted a little bit of a disaster by doing these checks. We realised your mic is not turned up enough.
Yes.
Last time it wasn't on. That was the issue.
Yes.
But luckily, people could still hear the video.
Yes, they could hear because they could.
Wasn't great.
Yes.
But they could hear it. Where this time now, hopefully, this will be a lot better.
I think if the microphone had been working, you'd have had 400,000 views of that video.
I think if the microphone had been working, we could be in jail. It's only because the civil servants in London were going, I'm not listening to this shit. The audio's crap.
Yes, as soon as it started, I'm not listening to crap. Yeah. So they may have missed the bits we talked about.
And the people who did listen to it, it reminded them of the Second World War, when you've got a crappy little radio under your bed and you're sending signals to Iron Goose, Iron Goose, Iron Goose, this is potato salad. So it reminded people of being in the resistance.
The other complaints, apart from the microphone was every 3 complaints.
And I apologise for that, my fault.
Was your use of the word packy.
Yeah.
Although I actually used it.
Yeah.
But there was quite a lot of a dispute. In fact, at Henry B160, one of your loyal listeners, called you an idiot.
Yeah.
Because he said the derivation of packy is not an abbreviation of Pakistani. Have you got anything to say about that?
Yeah, he just happens to be wrong. He's a nice listener, but he just happens to be wrong. We had quite a few comments going, Paki isn't a tribe. There was two different versions coming through in the comments. One was saying Paki comes from no one criticised the Stani bit, meaning land of. No one criticised that.
Is that what Stani means? Land of?
Yeah, land of. Yeah. They criticised the meaning of the word Paki. There was two answers people came through with. The first one was Paki for some reason means peace in some language, so it was a land of the peaceful. No. The second answer was Paki. The word Paki, and why they called Pakistan was because it was an anagram of different areas of Pakistan.
Yeah,
I forgot what it was now.
I know, there was saying this is this P stands for this, A stands for this.
Yeah. Now my answer to all that is, it doesn't matter, I'm still right.
Okay.
Pakistan means the land of the Pakis. Paki is the tribe of that land. Right. Now I don't mean tribe necessarily in the meaning of an ethnicity of a tribe who live together in teepees. I would say one of your tribes, Lindsay, is the Manchester United tribe. Correct.
Yeah.
So when I use the word tribe, I mean a group of people who say they belong together, and I call that a tribe. Hence, the people who come from Pakistan are Pakis because they come from the land of the Pakis. Mm. Why they call themselves Pakis is none of my concern.
Mm. My wife took me to task on this use of the word, as you can imagine. And I was saying, I think, it's one of those words where we've been oppressed and, told it's a hate crime and all that jazz, and it should be used as it was used by the cabbie. But then when we were in our local Indian restaurant, she said, "Why don't you use it now then?"
Yeah.
But I wouldn't just use it randomly in that situation, would I?
Good point. That's a good point from her. It's no. I mean, this is how difficult these conversations can be. That's a good point from her. So if it's okay in the back of a taxi to use the term "packy,"
yes,
why is it not okay in a restaurant to say to the manager, "Can you send that packy waiter over? I want to order some more bhaji's."
Yeah, but I wouldn't say send the packy waiter over. I say, could you send that waiter over?
Now, if there was two waiters, a white one and an Asian one,
yes,
and you wanted the person serving your table was the Asian one, would you then go, "Can you send the packy waiter over?"
I'd say, could you send the darker waiter over, please? Could you send the waiter over with the black hair?
Well, if you'd have said the darker waiter, I'm sure that would get you in more trouble than using the word packy. But this is what happens. Words change their meaning over time.
Yeah.
Sometimes because of the use of that word, and sometimes because it's a political stunt to do that. Now, a good example would be the word gay. When I was growing up in Manchester, there was two restaurants I remember miles away from each other, both called the Gay Lord, Indian restaurants. They're not called the Gay Lord now.
Oh, really?
Well, you couldn't call it the Gay Lord. That got stopped in the 90s.
Oh, really? They changed the name?
They changed the name because you couldn't say you were the Gay Lord. I don't know why an Indian restaurant would call themselves that, but it was acceptable at the time.
Yeah.
The word gay used to mean happy. Yeah. Now it means homosexual.
Yes.
Why did that happen? Who gave the permission to change a word that means happiness into homosexuality?
I have no idea.
For me, it was part of the woke political movement of the 70s and 80s. Now, let's look at the word packy again. So, packy, like I said to people, when I was growing up, the local shop was called a packy shop. We used to use the word packy shop in the packy shop. because it was the Packy shop.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the early 70s. Wasn't an issue. But then over time, people who wanted to claim power, who wanted some sort of control over their community, the immigrant community, who wanted a special word like the M word, started redefining the word Packy to mean the M word. And that's where we are now. So now it is deemed by most people to be offensive, but it wasn't in my childhood. Another good example would be the film The Dam Busters.
Yes.
The Dam Busters, a really fantastic film. I think it was made in the late 40s, 50s, black and white, about these heroes who bombed dams in Germany to stop their production of their armaments. And one of the pilots had a dog in real life called Nigger. And on the RAF base, the dog is buried, and it's called Nigger. About 3, 4, 10 years ago, they dug up the dog and moved it because they couldn't have the dog called Nigger on the RAF base anymore now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that is a way that's rewriting history.
Because I think they refer to that in the film, don't they? The dog. I'm sure they do. I'm sure there's
when we watched it as a kid, yes, not anymore.
No, they've taken it out.
It's dubbed now. It's
what do they call it?
I can't remember now. It's like something that rhymes with the word.
Yes.
Higger.
Right.
Migger. Trigger. They've dubbed over.
So you're telling me they dug up this dog?
Yes.
Dog, because of its name?
Yes.
I actually find it quite difficult to say the word that you just said there, by the way. They dug it up and put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So nobody will come onto the... So they don't have a headstone with that name.
Yes.
That's terrible, I think.
How crazy is that?
Yeah,
rewriting of history, because at that time, that word wasn't... Was it offensive? It would have been offensive in America.
Yeah.
But it wasn't offensive for here. That word over here meant black.
Yes. Yeah. There used to be a colour with that name, the N-word, didn't there? But yeah, we're moving on to more dangerous territory with that rather than Packy, I think, in terms of the use of that word, which I think you and I were talking about, because I was suggesting we have a chat about that word, because again, it's a word that you get accused of hate if you're using it and things like that, and I'm questioning everything now, so maybe for another
Lindsay,
time.
why don't you look into the camera and say the word?
No.
Look into the camera and cleanse your soul of this control they have over you and say the word.
No, I can't. Actually, interestingly, whilst I was having the conversation with somebody, they used the word to illustrate, and they were saying, when is there ever a point where you would use the word, the N-word, using the actual word? And I said, well, you've just done it now.
Yeah.
You've just done it now, and the reason you've done it now is because we're not using it in a pejorative or offensive way. We're discussing the use of a word. Therefore, it's perfectly acceptable to say the word. So my son, who did English literature at UCL in London, they actually took the words out of their scripts. Now, a lot of the scripts that were written in the 19th, 18th, 19th century had that word in it as part of the text. At UCL in London now, they're not allowed to use the word. And apparently it's because some snowflake in the lecture theatre said, I'm feeling offended, or I'm feeling harmed. What's the terminology they use about the fact they're feeling threatened by the use of the word?
Words of violence.
Words of violence. It was one of those sort of things. So I couldn't understand that, because if it's part of the text that was written at the time and you're analysing the book, why would you not say that word as you're reading a section of text out?
That's all about control. It's all about controlling the nation, controlling narrative, controlling the words, controlling you. We tell you what you can say and can't say. We're going to keep you in a constant state of fear of saying the wrong thing, because that makes you then say nothing. And that's exactly what we want you to say. Nothing.
The fact you've said that word in this, does that mean the YouTube will ban it then? Or
no. So if it's not in the first 7 seconds, then YouTube then take a slightly lax view of it, as in, as long as it's in context, as long as I'm not saying I hate N-word people, then you can not.
So their algorithms can actually analyse that, can it?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and if they don't, I put an appeal in, and I've won every appeal in YouTube up to now. But let me give you a definition of the M word, and this is by Chris Rock, the famous American stand-up comedian.
Who is black.
Yes,
right.
And he says his description of the M word is this: when he's at a cash point, taking money out, and he's looking behind him, he's not looking for black people, he's looking for niggers.
Thank you for that definition. And you've had a great career on YouTube. And
up to now.
It's a shame it's ending today. One thing that caused more anger than the microphone mistake you made, Nick.
That we made.
Royal we. Or the use of the word packy. And by the way, Henry B160, you heard it here. You're wrong in calling Nick an idiot. I was called an absolute fucking wanker. Can I say that on YouTube?
And that was just my wife. Because she saw that episode and my wife went, yeah, he's a fucking wanker.
I was called an absolute fucking wanker. Not by your wife, but by... In fact, I didn't write his name down, but it was one of our... And that's because I made a throwaway comment. I can't even remember making the comment. But what I said was... Those arseholes working from home.
Yes.
And I was talking about the fact the city's empty now on Friday in London, and the reason being because of the arseholes working from home. And what I'd like to do is not apologise to our listeners.
Good.
Because my opinion is, I'm right. I don't
look into the camera and tell him you're not apologising.
I'm not apologising, dear listeners, for saying that arseholes working from home, because I do not agree with working from home, Nick. I do not agree with working from home. I think it's one of the worst things that's happened to us in the last 10 years. It gathered a massive momentum during COVID and now seems here to stay. And my views chime with a lot of other people, that Elon Musk in particular, that I think it's immoral when people work from home, when everybody else has to go and work in the factory. It's an insult to people who work with their hands or work on shop floors or whatever and have to work. And I think that people working from home should be restricted to an absolute minimum, if any at all. And I think the productivity, the stats back me up, productivity has dropped massively in the UK, especially in London, since working from home has come into place, basically. So that's kind of my position on this one.
There's many reasons why working from home is the wrong scenario that we're taking on board now. The first one is it makes people lazier. People will argue, no, it doesn't, I get more work done, blah, blah, blah. No, you're just fooling yourself, because it doesn't. I know lots of people who work from home, and when you have a couple of drinks down and they tell you what they do during the day, they wash the pots, they take the dog for a walk, they do this, they do that, and fit it all in with working from home. The second point is it's extremely unfair on younger people, because younger people learn their job by working in an office and learning from people in that office, because a lot of the work you do is not taught, it's picked up by being around people who are already doing it. So we're hamstringing the next generation, because they're not sat next to 3-4 people who've been doing a job for 30 years and the wealth of knowledge, because now they're working from home. It also stops people sharing information. So there's many times I've sat in an office when I work for the council, for instance, where I've got this problem, and somebody will say, have you tried this, this and this? And you'd go, no, I'd never thought of those things, thank you. And we miss that now. So we've got people now in isolation, sat at home. It's not good for their mental health.
Agreed.
They speak to nobody else. But because it's convenient, they think it's good for them. But it's destroying them slowly. And it's damaging businesses. But most of all, it's damaging our public sector. They're all working from home. There's a story online in the papers today. I think it was the Mail. There was a Zoom call by a district nurse with someone who then collapsed, and she sent him a Teams message to see if he was okay, and he died.
I don't know why I'm laughing. It's not.
No, but that's
the point.
So now we've got nurses working from home.
Yeah. So in fact, if you'd been in front of him, with him at the point of and he'd collapsed, you could have administered first aid.
Gatwick Airport got closed down a couple of weeks ago because the tech guy was working from home and had the wrong passwords to access the system. Jeez. And Gatwick Airport closed down for like 12 hours.
Wow.
Tens of thousands of people destroyed because he was working from home.
Wow. And apparently it's getting worse since the government have taken over the civil service now. Even more now working from home since this new government's come into power. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I am, but the unions are fighting for it. The unions are now fighting to make working from home a legal requirement,
right?
But also working from home from a different country a legal requirement. Because what most people don't know is we've got tens of thousands of civil servants working from home in Nigeria, Pakistan and India. They just went home and kept their job. Wow. And are living a fraction of the price in Nigeria on first world wages, living like kings.
That's scandalous.
Yes.
That's what I mean. It's just the whole thing is just, I think, quite obscene. It's interesting, one of our moles, I've been talking to him about this. And we were having an exchange of WhatsApp, and he said, apologies for the delay in responding, but my sister's just rung me. She just quit her job. Now, he was telling me about his sister. She works from home all the time. She refuses to go into the office. And as a result of that, she hasn't been promoted. She's been looked over for promotion. She spends all the time embittered about...
Shock horror.
Yeah, she's embittered about the fact of the people being promoted. She feels frustrated, but she won't go into the office. And now she's just handed a notice in because she's so frustrated with her role. She cannot see the connection between the fact she's spending all the time at home and the fact that she isn't progressing in her career.
Well, she actually has a point, because I feel sorry for her, because I don't even work for her company and they've never promoted me. So I don't understand what this company is doing. If they can't promote someone who works for them and doesn't turn up at the office, and can't promote someone who doesn't even work for them, what sort of company is this?
So research shows that productivity has declined in certain sectors as a result from working from home. The 2.6% drop in the UK public sector productivity, which is because more and more people work out.
And it was low anyway.
1% decrease in output per employee attributed to shifting work attitudes. Contributing factors, which you mentioned here, reduced skill development opportunities for young professionals and less effective communication in collaborative industries.
That's what I just said, yeah.
That's what you just said. Additionally, remote work habits such as television watching during work hours reported by over 80% of hybrid workers averaging 2 hours daily TV watching. So 80% of people who work from home are watching TV for 2 hours in that day.
There's a warning for these people, and it's this. If you can, let's say they're correct. Let's say working from home is just as productive. Let's say that's a given.
Yeah.
If that's a given, why do they need to employ you in the first world?
Correct.
Employ you in Japan, employ you in India, employ you in Romania, employ you somewhere else. Fraction of the wage, and you've already convinced us it has no detrimental effect on productivity. These people are slowly making themselves redundant if they don't get a grip.
There has been a shift in quite a lot of major corporations back to forcing people to go back into the office, which is a positive. The final bit, which I think is hilarious, apparently 10% of remote employees take naps during the day, normally around 2 p.m. So 1 in 10 of remote workers, home workers, are taking naps.
Well, of course they do. Lazy motherfuckers always need a nap.
So whilst I've been absolutely hauled over the coals and castigated for my...
And don't forget, I work from home.
Yeah,
but I work for myself.
You work for yourself. That's
so I never stop.
You haven't got an office.
No.
Have you? So I'm not retracting my view on.
Good for you.
And I know your wife's not going to speak to me anymore. So
You let me down when you wouldn't say the N word to the camera, but you've sort of reclaimed a bit of it now by sticking up to my wife.
Sticking up.
Yeah, 4'7". Yeah, white. Yeah, I'm glad you stuck up for her.
Now, I also understand that last week it's been a busy week with all the accusations flying around. I understand you were also reported for hate, Nick.
Hate crime, Nick. Crime. But again,
I mean, who's watching this that takes the time to report you for hate?
I'm amazing. Any idiots watching me and you.
You now just insulted all of the entire audience. Right, okay.
Yeah, someone contacted me saying, I've just reported you for hate to YouTube because you were talking about DEI and the lesbian who sunk the New Zealand ship and stuff like that. And do you know what? Initially, my response was, oh shit. And then
you thought, have I made a mistake?
Yeah.
And then you thought, hang on a minute.
Well, it's YouTube.
Yeah.
So, YouTube will censor people. YouTube will close down channels. YouTube people, you get 3 strikes from YouTube, then they shut your channel down.
Really?
It's taken me years to get to where we are on YouTube.
How many strikes have you had?
None.
Oh, right, okay.
So I'm thinking, do I want my first strike? Because once you get a strike, that will curtail what I say. Because I don't want a second strike. Because if I get a second strike, that means one faux pas, and I'm gone.
Yeah. Was this actually YouTube saying this to you, or was this somebody?
A comment.
Oh, a comment.
Someone commented to me that I've now reported you to YouTube for hate.
Oh, right.
Now that was 3, 4, 5 days ago. I've heard nothing off YouTube.
Ah, right.
But it's. So I
understood it was because you'd used the word leather.
It was everything on that video.
There was quite a lot of pejorative name calling in that. There's been more on this one as well.
Well, I wouldn't say no. There wasn't a lot of pejorative name calling. There was one use of the word leather, and for me, that's a collective noun for lesbians. Now, it was comedic. I don't think it was hateful.
No, you're right. It was done in the spirit.
Yeah. So, but again, when you're talking to these multinational companies like YouTube, there is no nuance with them. It's one thing or the other. But the point I'm trying to make is getting that message saying I've now reported you made me go, oh, and I got over it. But that was probably the point of sending me that message.
To try and scare you.
To scare me.
Yeah.
And it does work on social media, apart from on X, because you're always one complaint away from being banned.
Yeah.
And what that complaint is. And I try to be sensible, and there's nothing I say on here that I wouldn't say to someone's face. I try to be honest to myself and honest to the listeners. But sometimes you don't know where the line is for these multinational Silicon Valley companies.
But there's a serious point here, isn't there? I think we've talked about it before, which is this climate of fear that we now all live in, where you and I can have an innocent conversation, have a chat about something, make a joke about something, and I've rewatched that particular video, and it is very funny, I think, even though it says that I'm saying it myself. But what a world it is to live in, where you can have a conversation like that and then be scared of the consequences of having that conversation. And this is how they're now dealing and driving everybody in society, isn't it? It's about fear. We are controlled by fear, aren't we? And
I've got a worse scenario for you.
Okay.
How about saying things online and you end up in a British jail?
Yes. Imagine if that was possible.
So forget being cancelled off YouTube and I lose this channel. I mean, that'd be upsetting.
Yeah.
But nothing like being sent to jail for 3 years, which we have in this country now, political prisoners who tweet something and go to jail.
Yeah. And that's the reality, isn't it? There's levels of fear now, aren't there? So the extreme fear now is people know that if they potentially post 2 tweets, if they post a tweet saying Muslims are responsible for the Southport killing or something else like that, if they post a tweet like that, they can end up in jail. And that's happened, we know that. A man was jailed for we've got the details somewhere else, but a man was jailed for 3 years for 2 tweets. you saying the word leather in this potentially thinks you can potentially lose your YouTube channel and your social following, which is, you know, a big part of what you do. That's another example of it. And people are just generally scared in this country about all sorts of... But the financial fear as well is another thing as well. Speeding, parking fines, all this sort of stuff that they're driving.
Losing your job in your career, that happened to me 4 years ago.
Losing your job in your career, being cancelled. You mentioned BLM, Lessons in Courage. You mentioned BLM and you lost your job. You know, so it's these layers of fear. Even somebody like you now, who is fairly free and liberated, is now scared, or can be scared, when some random incel sitting at home sends you a thing saying, I'm going to report you for hate crime because you use the word lesbian. I mean, it's shocking, isn't it? It is. And are people aware that they are being subjected to this level of fear and threat? Do you think they are aware?
It's happened so slowly over such a long period of time, of decades, that many people are not. But people are beginning to wake up. The political prisoners is a good example. A couple of years ago, I never would have believed the British government would have done this to people tweeting online. Never would have believed it. And then when we did that episode about the London cabbie telling us those 3 secrets, many people online said, that's nothing new, I've heard about that. But my criticism of that is, but you didn't put it online, though, did you? You heard it, but you didn't put it online because suddenly we're scared to talk about that because we think Keir Starmer may lock us up. Do you remember when the press and everybody went after Boris Johnson? How many kids has Boris Johnson got? It's common knowledge in the paper. No one knows he's got so many illegitimate kids. And there's all these things that happen to other prime ministers that were freely spoken about. I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I'm not even saying it was our business or it wasn't our business. That's a different discussion. But we had those discussions about those prime ministers. But come this prime minister, with the iron glove he has, we've now frightened everybody. But me and you had the guts, rightly or wrongly, and information might have been right or wrong, we don't know. But we had the guts to say, well, we're going to talk about it.
And quite a few of our comments were about the fact you guys might have the police coming around and things like that on
and we might. But I'm not prepared for it, as in like I'm a big brave man. But I've said to you many times before, I'm not prepared to live my life on my knees. I'm not. If they're going to come and invest me, because I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm not trying to provoke a response. I'm not. I'm just saying, this is me. I'm going to speak and talk about what I want to speak. If that has consequences, well, I'll face those consequences because I'm not a coward. I'm not going to be a slave. I'm not going to be someone's serf. I'm not.
No, I agree. The cabbie, I think we talked last time, also spoke about Sadiq Khan, your favourite.
Sir Sadiq Khan, coming the new year.
Sir Sadiq Khan, and that's what I wanted to talk about. He's going to be knighted, but apparently he's going to be knighted for political and public service. Are you aware of any political or public service this man has actually provided to us?
Political service, yes. I could name lots of things. Public service, that's where we get into a controversial area. So let's deal with the public service first. What's he done for the public? He's been the mayor of London now for a decade nearly. He's won 3 elections in London. And what's he achieved in London? Knife crime through the roof, rapes through the roof, white flight increasing, people, the nighttime economy dying, businesses dying, vast immigration. No one has a nice thing to say about London. No one does.
No.
It's purely now an economical zone. It's the area you go into in the morning, earn your money in and flee at night. So he's done nothing for London and the people of London. Politically, he's won the mayor of London now 3 times. No one's ever done that before. He was an MP before that. He's extremely woke. He's, people call him an Islamist. I'm not sure he is an Islamist because he's far too woke to be an Islamist, but he supports Islam, just like he supports blacks and Jews. Jesus Christ, that was a bit of a slip, wasn't it? He doesn't support Jews, but he supports all this woke nonsense. And with a Labour government in power, a woke Labour government like we have at the moment, they class this as political service. So that one I get. I disagree with it, but I get that. But public service, geez, you're gonna have to explain that one to me.
Yeah, I'm part of a WhatsApp group, and somebody wrote something quite really well phrased. I think I shall just read out now if you don't mind. So actually, for political service, despite public disservice, for ideological fidelity, despite administrative incompetence, reform ask disingenuously what for, this is what for. Furthermore, he's a professional Muslim, a professional person of colour, a professional victim. His own self-conception is totally in line with the woke ideology. Achievements have nothing to do with it. Adherence to ideas is everything. Awarded to Sadiq Khan because he loved Big Brother with all his heart and soul.
That sounds good. I am not that way inclined. I think he's been given a knighthood for a simple reason. Keir Starmer said to him, I'll give you a knighthood. Don't run for my job.
Really?
I think so.
Surely Sadiq Khan could not run for the leader of the Tories.
He could run for it.
Labour, sorry.
He could run for it.
Same
He may even win it. But he'd never win the general election after that. But Keir Starmer's not worried about that. Keir Starmer's worried about his job. So Keir Starmer has two external major enemies, Sadiq Khan and Andy Burnham. And he's worried about both of them. He's now just done a deal with Sadiq Khan. I'm going to make you a knight of the realm, knight of the round table. And I've also heard rumours, it's basically this, that Sadiq Khan is really physically not well.
He doesn't look very well. He's always got very dark rings around his eyes. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
Where have you heard that? That's interesting.
A couple of things online, but they didn't go into detail, but they're saying he's physically not well and won't, not saying he's going to die, but won't be around much longer as a politician. So I've heard that rumour. I'm not saying it's true or not, I have no idea. But I think Keir Starmer now has sidelined Sadiq Khan. Right. Here's your knighthood. You're not going to cause me in troubles, thank you. He's not giving Andy Burnham one. Andy Burnham, I would argue, is just as successful.
Why would Andy Burnham deserve a knighthood?
For the same reason Sadiq Khan deserves a knighthood.
Bugger all.
Bugger all. But Andy Burnham hasn't been offered one because Andy Burnham still wants Keir Starmer's job. So maybe Andy Burnham the idea was floated to him. Would you like to be a knight of the round table? And Andy Burnham went,
it's not knight of the round table. Or is it a knight of the round table?
No, it's not. It's a knighthood. But Andy Burnham may have said, yes, thank you, I'll take a knighthood, but I still want your job. Yeah. And in case I went, you're not having one then, are you? You're not having one.
Yeah.
There's only one Sir in this gang, and it's Sir Keir Starmer. Because we forget sometimes, he's been knighted. So for the person who thinks he's representing the man of the people and the average worker and the labourer, is he bollocks? No. Sir Keir Starmer.
They're all totally divorced.
Yeah. From those people. I think that's why Sadiq Khan is being made a knight.
The Sadiq Khan thing, though, the hypocrisy is staggering, though, isn't it? This is a man who despises Britain, its people, its religion and its culture, but he's happy to take its highest award, isn't he?
I'm not sure he does despise all those things.
Oh, I think he does.
I just think he's got a different interpretation of those things. So I think he thinks many of those things that we agree with, he thinks are actually wrong and evil and damaging. So he wants to change it. He wants to see England and the UK as a better place. And only he knows how to make it a better place. If he gets it, we'll think it's hell.
Well, why does he do things like in Black History Month saying, let's celebrate what all the black Londoners have done for London? I've never heard him saying, let's celebrate what all the white Londoners have done for London.
Yeah, because that's the woke ideology he follows.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he hates the country and hates the people of the country. That just means he's a fool. We have many fools. It doesn't mean they hate other people.
He's just appointed. Have you heard of a guy called Meet Coban? Mete, Coburn.
No.
I was reading about this, and I just thought he's been made the Environment Deputy Mayor, basically, or the Environment Deputy for the Mayor of London.
Right.
What the frick that means.
Yeah.
But he's been paid 150 grand a year.
It's more than MPs. MPs are on 92.
And I was looking through this guy's CV, and he doesn't actually do anything. He's never actually done anything. Do you know what I mean? There's the population of London, the public sector in London and across the country is populated by grifters who don't actually do or make anything. Do you know what I mean? When I'm going to talk about a trip I made to Belfast last week, and when we were landing back in England, there was a group of people standing nearby me, young people, and they were talking about what they were doing. And one guy was saying, "Oh, does so and so work for you?" "Oh yes, she's I'm her supervisor." And he said, "Oh, what's she working on at the moment?" And it's like he said something like, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like, "Oh, she's doing a study on gender equality relating for this such and such and such." And I was like, "What the frick is that?" Yeah. But there were 3 people there. Clearly, him, the guy who was talking to, and her who worked for him. She was there. Were employed, paid money. They come on a business flight to go on to Belfast for the day.
Public sector.
Employed, paid money for doing things that don't mean anything or don't contribute anything or add any value to anything. And this Meet Coburn's another one. He's got a £150,000 a year job working for the Mayor of London as the Environment Deputy. What's he going to do?
A good question. What I want to ask is, what makes these people believe in climate change? £150 wage is a really good start, isn't it?
No, you're right.
If they offered me that in Greater Manchester, if Andy Burnham phoned me and said, "Nick, I need a Greater Manchester net zero deputy mayor, we'll pay you £150,000. Do you believe in net zero?" I go, "Motherfucking yes, I do." Of course I do. 150. I'll give you 150,000 reasons why I do.
So these grifters who have no qualifications, no talent, no ability, good bullshitters, they end up getting £150,000 a year for dealing with something that just isn't an issue at all, and is a fantasy, and they will then perpetuate lots of campaigns. They'll be indoctrinating our children because he wants his 150 grand a year, doesn't he?
Yep. And there's nothing a deputy mayor of London on the environment can do.
Yeah.
The national government can do stuff and can damage the economy, but a deputy mayor of London can't do anything about the issue, even if it was a real issue. There's nothing they can do anyway.
But those 2 people in the airport terminal, I could hear chatting. I was earwigging, obviously. They were talking about stuff that's just bollocks, that doesn't exist, that isn't real. That's the bit I don't get. I'm starting to actually think, this is insanity. You have people paid, I mean, billions of pounds we're talking about, aren't they, in this country now? Salaries of billions of pounds. People who have jobs that don't mean anything, that don't produce anything, that don't generate any value for our country.
There's whole departments like that.
Yeah. But he was saying, I'm her supervisor. I know fuck all. I talk bollocks, and I supervise somebody else who knows fuck all and talks bollocks as well. And between us, we'll talk bollocks all day about gender equality between this department and that department. And she's doing a report on it. And I'm like, I felt like grabbing hold of him and shaking him and saying, "Do you realise your life is a sham? It's a joke. It's a travesty, you know?" But the sad thing about this is, it's not like they're doing it in a private business somewhere that doesn't harm anybody. They're doing it with our money, Nick. Our money. Once
you got on that treadmill in the public sector, you stay on a treadmill, and it doesn't matter what they tell you to do. That's your job. So you just keep staying on the treadmill, producing stuff that no one wants. I used to produce reports when I worked at Master Council that I knew no one read. I used to collect stats that no one read. We used to ask questions of residents I knew that no one wanted to know the answers to. And it's just the same thing. A couple of months ago, I was in Northumberland on holiday, me and my wife, and we sat at this lovely little pub. And me and my wife are a bit different, as in we don't need company around us. We always enjoy our own company.
Although she doesn't have much company because she works from home. So.
Don't start, you get me in trouble. The table opposite was a couple, and then another couple turned up and sat at the other table.
Yeah.
And those two couples started talking, and one of the guys said, "Oh yeah, I'm the former chief exec of Sheffield Council," and they started talking about that, and I went, and Sharon, my wife, saw me, and she went, "Don't say a word." She went, "Don't you be questioning him now about being the chief executive, the former chief executive of Sheffield Council." I went, and they started talking bollocks, and she's going, "No, Nick, no,
Yeah.
you're not having that comment. He's on holiday as well. You don't." But I was very tempted to go, "You retired, did you?"
Yeah.
And one of the conversations he had was about how he's retired and they're putting up council tax like 10-15% and blah blah. And I felt like saying, it's not affected your pension though, has it, mate?
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't a manager, he was a chief exec. He ran the council for 10-15 years, whatever.
Yeah.
It's all down to him.
Yeah.
And he left, kept everything, and now Sheffield Council is, he's in trouble, but I had to keep him out shut. Yeah.
And interesting, I was reading an article about charities, the big charities, and you and I talked about this before. Apparently now a massive percentage, I don't know the exact number, maybe our listeners can tell us, a massive percentage of the contributions that go into these charities now, gifts that go into the charity, are used to cover defined benefit pension schemes. So all these freeloading executives in these big charities, similar to the council we were talking about there, they've been taking money in big salaries for decades. Now they've retired, but they've had defined benefit, of course, because they've got no oversight, have they?
Yeah.
So they put in place defined benefit pension schemes, which means basically you get a percentage of your salary, don't you?
Yeah.
50% of your salary. But those schemes are so expensive now. A lot of the contributions going to the charities are going to cover that.
Yeah.
Not for the beneficiaries of the charity, but to cover their bloody pensions.
So what that means for people who understand pensions is a normal pension would be every month you put a part of your wage into a pension and your employer puts a little bit in as well. That money is ring fenced by a pension company and that's your money.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is the top people of those charities design their own pensions, which means that money doesn't exist. It's not ring fenced because that money doesn't exist. But once they retire, the charity is obliged to keep paying them with money that doesn't exist. So they take out of donations that are coming in.
Correct. So now a big percentage of the donations are going into the pension scheme to service these grifters
who are gone.
Who've gone now. No longer, they haven't worked because they care about the charity. They work because they want to get a good salary. And there's all these places where these horrible people are spending a working life doing nothing. Then at the end of it, they're getting pensions that are being funded by the charity donations from people like you and me, or by the government.
Yeah.
It's just it does make my blood boil, Nick.
For people watching, when it comes to big charities, I've said many times now, do not give money to big charities. Do not give money to Children in Need, Comic Relief, Save the Children, Oxfam, all the ones you've heard of. Don't give money to them. You're wasting your money because a lot of it goes to things we've just discussed. And those charities are not doing the things they should be doing. Oxfam staff were raping women across the world a couple of years ago. Yeah. Some of them were children who were raping. It's all in the press. It's not rumour. It's in the press. So let's stop funding them. We need to be a society that supports charity. But as your dad told you, charity starts at home.
Correct.
So start supporting local little charities in your neighbourhood because they do the best work in your area. Now, some people have an issue with charities paying staff. Well, that doesn't make sense. We won't expect doctors and nurses to work for free. So why would we expect charity staff to work for free? It's a job. If you want the best people helping people, we need to pay them. Otherwise, people wouldn't do that job. But there is a limit to what people should be paid in the charity sector, and we need to look at those pensions you talked about.
Well, I think if you want to work for a charity, you should want to work for that charity. So a lot of these small charities are set up by people who've had a personal tragedy or something's happened, and they feel motivated to do that. And those people are I think those people should be the people running the charities.
Yeah.
I don't think they should get a salary. I think they should get an allowance or something like that. I don't think they should get a pension either. It's not a vehicle to make money, charity, is it? It's a vehicle for you to promote a cause. And if you feel strongly about that cause, you should work for it. If you don't feel strongly, I don't think you should work for these.
So what about doctors?
What?
Should doctors be paid?
Yes.
Why?
Well, they're not running charities.
Because, well, it's a type of charity giving healthcare. So you've grown up all your life wanting to be a doctor. It's a calling. It's not a profession. So you become a doctor. You do all the training and then you get a job and you want to be paid for it.
No, because I think some people go to be doctors so they can have a good life and a good lifestyle because they know what salaries are commensurate with a doctor. So no, I don't think that applies to doctors. I'm talking about charities.
I think it's exactly the same thing. Certain people go into charities to earn money. Certain people go into charities to do good. I think we need to judge charities on their outcomes. How many lives are you changing? How many people you've stopped going into debt? How many girls have you stopped being raped? We judge them on that, and that should reflect their salary. Because if you want professional people helping people throughout our country, they need to be paid, otherwise they can't afford to live.
Yeah.
But what happens is you get a few people at the top who abuse the system, and then we just see that and we go, I'm sick of all of them. And they tend to be the big charities you've heard of. People who work in your local youth club are on minimum wage.
Yeah. I just want all these people, like those people on the plane to Belfast, like this bloke in London, Meet Coburn, 150 years. They should be given a quiz, or they should be sat down, and they should say, tell me what contribution you are making in terms of creation of anything, improvement in the GDP in this country. And I think if people can't do that, they should be bound and gagged and thrown into a prison, basically.
Absolutely.
And and even people who've been working for, because there must be people, Nick, who've probably worked for 30 or 40 years doing a job that has added no value to anyone at any time, anywhere.
I know half of them. There's no supposing about it.
So this is why Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, I can never pronounce his name. This is why they've created this Doge thing, isn't it? They're going to wipe these people out. Yeah. And quite right. There's so much that we need in society to be manufactured, created and made. And we are surrounded by these monsters who do nothing. It's
worse than that. A lot of these people don't do nothing. They hamper the real people who are trying to create wealth and improve the country. If they just did nothing, it still needs sorting out, but at least they're not a negative on society. Many of these departments and job roles are actually negative. It stops people like you opening business. It stops people like me from helping people on the streets. They're actually a negative to our way of life. They're draining. Yeah,
they are draining. I mentioned, didn't I, when I was in London, that they're now bringing in the cycle lanes.
Yeah.
I was shocked because I had to go to Manchester last week. Was it last week or this week? No, last week. And I was walking down the Deansgate Street, and then I noticed it's now one-way Deansgate.
Yeah.
Because they put in a cycle lane.
Yeah.
So the street now is too narrow to actually have cars going two ways. And the traffic now driving into Manchester is getting horrendous. And it used to be fine.
So
they've done it in Deans.
They have.
I was complaining about London. They've done it in Manchester.
Deansgate Works has got nothing to do with cycle lanes. The council I think I saw the plans 15, 20 years ago. They wanted to make Deansgate, first of all, pedestrianised. Couldn't do it. Let's make it one way. So a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, they turned half of Deansgate one way. The bus companies got a solicitor on board and found out they did it illegally. So it got stopped. But that doesn't stop the council.
No.
They just put the paperwork in, got it legal, and then did it anyway. So the first half of Deansgate, from the cathedral up to Kendall's. Remember Kendall's? It's not called Kendall's now, whatever it's called.
That's where I was heading, actually. Heading in that direction.
So about 3 years ago...
Selfridges now.
Selfridges. So 2-3 years ago, that went one way. and then last last summer they changed the last half of Deansgate, or was it beginning of this year, the last half, they changed that, and they put a big cycle lane down it. Have you looked at it? It's complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like
it's complicated, but the only cycles I saw on it were Deliveroo drivers.
Yeah. And that's all you will see on it. Deansgate was changed to stop people driving in the city centre.
But why?
It's a grand scheme of the council. I've seen the plans 20 years ago. This is a long-term plan. That's why they've changed St Albert Square. That's why they pedestrianised that now. There's no cut through there now. They want people not to drive in the city centre, and they're slowly making it harder and harder and harder. It's a long-term plan. If you do it slowly, people don't realise. They think, oh, who's changed this road? Idiots. They don't realise this is a coordinated plan to stop you driving into Manchester city centre, and it's slowly working.
And you know something as well, the very grifters I was just talking about, these people who don't contribute anything to society or to the GDP, they're at the heart of it, aren't they? Sitting in their little offices, drawing out their little plans and saying we're going to do this, and it's all to do with net zero and bollocks and all like that. It's frightening. These people are working against us, Nick, all the time, and against good, hard-working, God-fearing people, aren't they?
It is, and it's getting worse than that. Manchester Council announced a couple of months ago, in the next year or two, I don't think they gave a date, next year or two, they will be changing all 40-mile-an-hour zones in Manchester, which is like Kingsway in Burnage.
Yeah.
They're all going down to 30. There'll be no 30 miles an hour in Manchester in the next year or two. They're changing them. Hence why they did the Mancunian Way. Mancunian Way used to be a motorway.
Yeah, it's now 40, isn't it?
Now it's 40. That'll be going down to 30 when the changes come.
And it's slow now, the Mancunian Way.
Yeah.
Now when you go on it, you slow down because everybody's trying to drive at 40 miles an hour. So it's been a great week for justice, hasn't it? Because Sadiq Khan is getting a knighthood. Hunter Biden has been pardoned by his father.
Yes, he has.
And Fauci, what's his first name?
Yeah.
Fauci has been given a pardon.
I didn't know that till you told me.
Now, the question I would ask, Nick, why, on the basis Hunter Biden and Fauci are innocent of any crimes, why are they getting pardoned? Sorry, I'll apologise. Hunter Biden is actually guilty of a crime. He was had a gun. He was potentially going to... So he's been pardoned, but despite the fact that President Biden said 2 years ago he'd never pardon his son. But the question I'd like to ask is, why is Dr. Fauci getting a pardon? Because he's the one who was the architect of the COVID response, all the stuff around that. And as we all know, COVID was a totally correct approach. The lockdowns were right. The vaccines are fantastic, all that sort of stuff. So why is Fauci getting a pardon? Let's
go back to Hunter Biden first.
Okay.
Hunter Biden, have you seen his pardon? It spans 13 years.
No, I didn't know.
From this date to that date, he cannot be investigated, prosecuted.
Oh, so it doesn't relate to his recent conviction?
It's for like it might not be 13 years, but it's a hell of a long period.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And the simple reason for that is simple. Because within those years, he was doing dodgy stuff with his dad. So now that's been closed down, that can never be opened again.
Same with this is to protect Biden rather than his son.
The Democratic Party, and all, not necessarily Biden because he doesn't know what day of the week it is, but everyone around him who was guilty as well.
Yeah.
Same with the Fauci thing as well. If we can stop people now prosecuting Fauci, that means everyone around him, everyone who agreed with it, everyone who doctored the data, everyone who lied, they're all safe as well because it all starts with him. We close it down at source. That's what all this is about. It's pure banana republic corruption.
I was going to refer to this guy, Mate Coburn, before, but the Hunter thing and Fauci thing is the same. As it's kind of what I would call jobs for the boys, basically. The boys all stick together, don't they? And they all protect themselves. And I was sad to say, Nick, that there was an example of that close to home last week.
Was there?
Yes. So a well-known broadcaster in MBE close to us is a good friend of another quite famous presenter called Mahyar Tousi.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of that.
I've heard of Mahyar.
Mahyar Tousi. So, some would say they have a very close relationship, scratch each other's back. And Mahyar Tousi was accused of basically grifting on his channel to try and raise money, pretending he was going to be arrested and stuff. And the other broadcaster, who's quite famous and knows him, who never gives any kind of defence of anybody, and is very kind of, and never even puts links on his YouTube videos to try and illustrate things. Bizarrely sprang to the defence of Mahyar Tousi, and even put a link, Nick, on the YouTube video that he made about Mahyar Tousi, saying, Mahyar Tousi is innocent, please look at this link here to prove the point. Are you aware of this individual?
I think that individual might have been me.
Oh yeah, actually you're right. You're right. Yeah. So this is an example, is it? You all stick together, you lot, don't you? All scratch each other's back, all pardon each other when things get tricky, and this is a classic example.
We need to be careful of condemning people with no evidence. So that was my point with that. You didn't give me any evidence of his potential crimes.
I never give you any evidence.
I know. You just read some online. So I like Mahyar Tousi.
I like him.
If he does something wrong and it's proven, I will criticise the man. But these were rumours, and I just wanted to say to people, Mahyar has addressed these rumours now. Go have a look about what he's saying. So that was the point of that.
Are you going to do the same for Keir Starmer when he addresses his rumours? Keir's addressed these rumours. Here's a link to Keir to prove the point.
To be fair, it's a valid point you raised. It is a valid point because I've never done that before. And the reason why I did it is because of personal reasons. I know the man. I like the man. I think he does a good job. I thought the rumours were unfair. But do you know what? If you looked at the last 62 episodes of this podcast, I'm sure we'd find another dozen examples that might fit that category. And I didn't put links in the description of those videos saying, look at what this person really says. So I didn't do that. It's a fair criticism.
I think so.
But thank you. But we're human, and we live our lives by our experience of the world we live in, and I just felt it was fair to make sure people could see what Mahyar Tousi was saying. And did you watch the video of Mahyar Tousi?
No,
no,
I refused to on principle.
Did you?
Well,
right.
because if I clicked on the link, then I'd be joining the old boys network, wouldn't I? Yeah.
Last thing
I prefer to just make unevidenced accusations.
Statements. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, to end this on Mahyar Tousi,
I was actually reporting what somebody else said
to you. I did. That's plainly obvious in the episode. But what's happening to him seems disgraceful. The police now have...
Oh, I don't actually know what's happened, so I refuse to click on that.
He got contacted by the police saying he said something they didn't like that may have been hate speech about Hezbollah in Lebanon. I think is a prescribed terrorist organisation country, and they were saying we want to discuss that with him.
What though? What did he say?
I don't know.
Oh, right, okay.
But it's all online. I just didn't go into that much.
Yeah.
And then because he then went online and talked about what the police said to him, they then were looking at arresting him, and then they must have got legal advice and found out, we can't arrest him for that. He's criticising a prescribed terrorist organisation. That doesn't work in this country. So then some police officers, we don't know who they are yet, leaked his home address online.
Oh, really?
So Mahyar Tousi is...
On what format did they leak it? How did they leak it?
He talks about it. It's all online. I don't know.
Okay.
But we've got Iranian spies, Iranian dissidents would like to kill him.
Yeah.
He does put in lots of things. He's had to move once already because they got his address. The police now have released his new address. He's trying to find out who those police officers are, because he's going to prosecute the police because it's against data protection, it's against lots of things. It's a state sanctions highlighting of a dissident for someone else to kill. That's what it looks like. He said on his channel he's not raising any money for this. He's going to sue the police himself. He's not asking for public donations. No,
Why wouldn't he ask for public donations though, surely?
because of all the rumours that he's a grifter.
Oh, I see, right. Okay.
So that then stops you saying, but anyway, it's a very serious thing. If the Met Police can release your address into the internet to shut you up and to scare you and to have you killed, that's a whole new level of intimidation, that is.
I'm surprised I'm not hearing more about that. That's interesting. Thank you for trying to justify your jobs to the boys.
Would you like to look at the camera and apologise to Mahyar, Tousi?
No. So I'm just hearing your word for it here. It's just like, yeah. So you keep asking me to look into the camera. First of all, I've got to look into the camera and say the N-word. Now I've got to look into the camera and apologise to Mahyar Tousi. Neither of which are going to happen. I mentioned the Belfast trip. So I flew over to Belfast last week, I think it was. And I was with a businessman who has a business in Northern Ireland. But as we headed towards his business, it was clear that he was close to Southern Ireland. Now, I brought my passport across.
Yeah.
I didn't need it for the flight across to Northern Ireland.
You don't need it in Southern Ireland.
Right, so again...
A little bit of an idiot, aren't you?
Yeah. Ignorance is bliss, as we both know, Nick. So, I had my passport, and because I mistakenly thought his business was in Southern Ireland, so I thought I'd better bring my passport just in case, even though, as you say, you don't need a passport. So.
But it's better doing that way round than the other way round, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, you've gone from insulting me to saying it was perfectly rational. Thank you. Maybe put a link towards the explanation at the end of this video. So I said, I brought my passport across, and he, like you said, you're an idiot. You don't need a passport to get into Southern Ireland. And I was actually quite bewildered, and I said, is that the case? So I said, what's to stop then people coming from Southern Ireland, European migrants flying into Southern Ireland, travelling across into Northern Ireland and all that. So we were talking about the migrant thing, and the conversation got very heavy very quickly, actually, because as always, I don't hold back on my views about things. And he said, that's not the problem.
It's the other way around.
It's the other way around. And I said, well, what do you mean? And we're all aware, aren't we, what's happening in Southern Ireland. The numbers now are staggering. Only 77% of the Irish population is now white. I don't know if you're aware of that. Yeah. I mean, that is massive. Yeah. So nearly, 25% of the Irish population is now foreign nationals.
A quarter.
Yeah, it's massive. So I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? He said, he said, they're now checking the buses going from Belfast to Dublin. And I said, well, buses from... Yeah, he said, what's happening? I'm paraphrasing it, by the way, so if he's listening, hopefully he'll appreciate what I'm trying to do. I'm paraphrasing. But what he said is, migrants come across the channel from England on a ferry or whatever it might be, because of course no passport required, just get on there. They get into Belfast, they get on a bus in Belfast, they get the bus to Southern Ireland, and start claiming benefits there. I said, well, yeah, but they can do that in England, can't they? Oh, no, he said. He said, yes, they can. However, and this, I almost had to do a little round of applause here, because this is something the UK's finally got right. The benefits in Ireland are much, much higher than the benefits in the UK. So, I checked these numbers out. Job seekers benefit in Ireland is €220 a week. It's only 73 quid in the UK. Child benefit per month is €140. It's either a week or a month, I'm not sure about. I think it might be a month. It's only 20 quid in the UK. So what's happening, and this is obscene, isn't it? People, either illegal immigrants or migrants, are getting into the UK
to go somewhere better.
Yeah. And the reason Ireland is in such a mess is because of British migrants heading into Ireland. No, I thought they were coming across the channel. Yeah. I thought they were flying in from Europe into Southern Ireland. They're not. Yeah. They're travelling through do people actually know this now?
We're Ireland's version of France.
Yes, we are. We are. But you don't see that on the news, do you?
No.
And I was quite shocked.
The reason why you don't see that on the news, because if the news had to admit that, and the government had to admit that immigrants are leaving here for Southern Ireland for a better benefit system, that would raise questions then of our benefit system, as in they're leaving France to come here because ours are too good. It would lead to a discussion about we need to slash or end benefits for migrants, and that's what we need to do. I don't think anybody who wasn't born in this country should ever be able to claim benefits.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. There was one other thing he told me about, which again I was quite shocked about. So apparently if you give an asylum seeker, I'm not quite sure, so maybe again our viewers, or you can correct me on this, if you give an asylum seeker or an immigrant a job in Ireland or even in the UK, you have to guarantee that job to them for 3 years. Have you heard of this?
No.
Maybe it's an Irish thing, I don't know.
Yeah, well, in the UK, asylum seekers can't work in the UK.
No, so it must be immigrants. So if you're giving a job, so if somebody's applied for a work visa here or whatever, or to be an immigrant, they have to be given a job for 3 years.
Sounds like an Irish thing, that.
Yeah, guaranteed. Yeah. So what's happening as a result is, with the downturn in the economy, Irish businesses are laying people off, but they're having to lay off native Irish people
of course they are.
First, because they've got to keep the immigrants.
Yeah.
That is shocking.
I can understand why they did that. So, Irish government trying to control immigration have said to businesses, you can employ someone from abroad, but you've got to guarantee them 3 years' work. That will stop anyone employing anyone and letting so that's a deterrent. But now that's been implemented and a downturn comes, we've got to let people go. Oh, I'm sorry, Mick. You've got to go. Mohammed's staying.
Yes. Sorry, Paddy. Mohammed's staying. Yeah. And again, this is an example of the government trying to interfere in capitalism and making a massive cock up as well. So I was just having that little trip made me realise our understanding of what's happening in Southern Ireland and everything else. So we just have no idea what's going on there. Just finishing this episode now, I want to finish on a positive.
Finally.
Which is about football, Nick. I know you're obsessed with football.
Right.
And this section I've headed up, I Love Jesus. So...
Is it about women's football because they're the best?
I think you should be able to comment on women's football as a man who has no knowledge of football.
I'd probably do okay.
So Mark, forgive my pronunciation, Gurhi, who plays for Crystal Palace, was forced as a captain to wear the rainbow frickin' armband, because there's this thing called rainbow laces at the moment in football. I'm aware of it. But he wrote on it, "I love Jesus." I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
And I think he was disciplined by his club basically, but not by the FA, which is a positive. But I think what it marks is the beginning of a fight back, a reaction. What do you call it to this bullshit woke stuff they're doing in football? Because what also happened last week was
Manchester United,
Nazir Mazraoui, they call him Maz, I think, or Noose, I can't remember what his name is. He refused to wear the rainbow. He's a Muslim, I think. He refused to wear the rainbow hoodie, jacket, tracksuit top, basically. And the rest of the team then also refused to wear it. And Ruben Amorim, the new manager, said, "We're not gonna subject one of our players to the spotlight by us all wearing it." So I think we're starting to finally see the lash. I can't remember what the terminology I'm looking for here. The kickback against this stupid work in football now. The footballers are finally now saying, enough is enough, I think.
Absolutely. It's ended this LGBT nonsense now in football.
Yeah.
Those two things happen within days of each other.
Yes, they did.
And Manchester United now have confirmed that their players will never be wearing those jackets.
Fantastic.
So that's what they've confirmed. And the FA have confirmed they will not be punishing that captain. That's the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the end of that. There's other things they need to tackle now in football, like the Black Lives Matter kneeling crap and all that.
Yeah.
But the LGBT stuff now has ended in football.
Yeah. I think they stopped the kneeling. So the last match we went to, they didn't do the kneeling. And the reason I know they didn't do the kneeling is because I didn't hear you booing.
Yeah.
So, so the fact.
The last thing I seen from the FA was a season ago saying they're not going to be taking a knee anymore, only at special event games. So they've given themselves permission to do it when they want to do it, but it won't be every game.
Yeah.
But that's not good enough for me. I want the FA to say, we're never taking the knee again.
Yeah.
And they will get there, or they'll just never do it again and hope it died and then no one ever mention it again. But this is the end of woke nonsense in sport.
Yeah.
Have you seen all the female athletes now refusing to play against mentally ill men? It's just
happening.
It's just ramping up now.
It's happening.
So there was a team, maybe basketball or something in America, where the team with a trans athlete got all the way to the final without playing a game, because every team they were up against, they said, we're not playing you.
Brilliant.
So they won by default.
Brilliant. Which is actually, to be fair, it's something you've always advocated.
It's the only way this beats it in female sport is women need to get a pair of balls, excuse the pun, and do this. But they're doing it now. This will end trans men now in female sports if they carry on doing that, because there is no sport and the bodies will change it. The Golfing Association, the GPA or whatever in America, have a couple of weeks ago have banned trans women now in the female circuit. We're on the hill down now.
I think you're right. Not just in this area, but lots.
We're on the hill now. It's going to take a long time.
Yes.
And certain institutions may take a decade for them to crumble.
Yeah.
So there'll be some easy fights, there'll be some long, hard fights, but we're over the hill.
Yeah.
We're on our way down now.
Yeah. And I'd like to thank Nick as an ender to this, that we in some way have contributed to that.
I'm sure I did.
Nick Buckley, MBE, thank you very much.
Cheers.